William joined again.
Rafiq, could you please check with William?
Yeah, he's joining, or we will start. Maybe he can.
Yeah, he is.
William joined. William, good afternoon. Yeah, you are on time.
Sorry, I was on India time.
Oh, good, very good. Oh, very good. We were there for 15 minutes. Okay. So we are going to start, and we are exactly on time. And I will ask William to give some introductory remarks once I say welcome them. Okay. Good morning, friends, and we are pleased to organize this national debate or discussion on the basis of studies done in India. And this particular discussion is organized by MFA, Migrant Forum Asia, CMS of Kochi, and the IMAD of Trivandrum. And before I talk more about this, I am requesting Mr. William, coordinator of the Migrant Forum Asia, to say a few introductory remarks. William, please.
All right. So thank you, everybody, for joining today. And thank you to Dr. Rajan and Sins and our panelists. I see Surabhi as well and Vinod for this. And I think it's a very important moment in time. Important moment in time, largely because I think finally the world has is coming to accept that we are going to live with this endemic. So slowly countries are opening up. You can see that the Gulf countries, which are the major countries of destination for many migrant workers, have taken India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh out of the red list. We are no longer part of the red list of countries. So even in the Philippines, India, Pakistan are no longer part of the red list kind of thing. So even if the numbers are still high, it's not as if numbers have come down. Numbers are higher than last year in terms of the COVID cases. But countries have realized that economies are suffering and a decision has to be made. The economy over the risk, and they are weighing that. There is a big debate going on in Philippine Parliament at the moment about this kind of thing. It is in this period, in this time of the COVID, that we saw the biggest damage to migrant workers on scale that we have not seen before. And I'm saying on scale that we have never seen before. So none of us have ever experienced a scale of atrocity like this to migrant workers. That millions were sent back, repatriated, or stranded. Millions have lost jobs. And this countries of origin nor destination have really come to grips with. From the first day of the pandemic till today, countries were of destination and origin from different perspectives have been looking at how to restart the economy. Everybody's thinking of going back to normal. That normal that we knew will never be. There's a new world that is emerging. And in this new world, we have recognized some things that we should never forget. And what are those things that we should never forget? That despite so much that has happened, migrant workers, particularly in the low and medium skill sector, have held up the sky, have held up the homes, have held up the economies, and have held up the communities and families in countries of origin and destination. Think of domestic workers who continued in their jobs in destination countries despite lockdowns, who couldn't go home, who couldn't get information, but still continued to work. Think of migrant workers in Lulu chains, in the malls, in supermarkets, in delivery boys, security guards, cleaners, janitors, all those migrant workers who fill up so much of this industry in destination countries. If you go to the UAE today, you go to Dubai today, Dubai is still as green as ever, as if nothing changed. How did Dubai manage to be green despite a lockdown? Because migrant workers were going out and tending to those parks and those gardens, even if there were no visitors. So I think this is something that we have to look at, the role that migrant workers have played, and the fact that one of the biggest issues that we have seen in terms of atrocity is the number of them who have not gotten their wages, who have been at work, who have working on half wages, who have had to change employers, not knowing if their rights would be upheld, those who have been repatriated without service benefits, end of service benefits, those who have come back knowing that their career has finished because now they will no longer have the opportunity to go back because of a certain age bracket they might fall in, or because their company has now changed the nature of its being to become more a hybrid kind of company, more online services and things like that rather than face to face services. So much has changed. And where is this debate happening? For the migrant workers, this campaign and the studies that Rajan and Sims have been involved in, and this campaign that we have led at the global level, for the first time, we took courage. And I will say we took courage for the first time, largely because for the first time in this pandemic, an issue that has been systemic in migrant worker abuse was never treated in the way it should have been treated, despite Abu Dhabi dialogue, despite Colombo process, despite GCM, despite Global Forum on Migration and Development. The issue of migrant workers not being given their wages, the end of service benefits, the reduction in wages, these kind of issues, we have also as civil society, as academia, looked at it as sometimes anecdotal, sometimes, yes, it is a problem that we don't know how to have governance over. Yes, we have tried with some kind of wage protection systems kind of thing. Yes, we have tried to do access to justice on a service oriented approach. But for the first time, in the pandemic, there was an awareness that was different. That is why we called it wage theft, a word that was uncomfortable even to the UN institutions. IOM, which engages with a lot of government and government to government agreements and with governments, labor migration or migration governance programs, is reluctant to talk about this as wage theft, largely because no government wants to say it oversees a labor economy in which theft is happening of wages. So it's a sensitive thing, so they don't like it being called that or don't want to call it that. ILO, because one of its constituencies is employers, is reluctant to call it out for what it is. Trade unions have, civil society has, some migrant workers have, some academics have, and migrant workers have called it that all the time, always, when they have used even abusive language against employers to say that employer did not pay them. I think India has a role to play in this, and I'm glad this consultation at the Indian level is happening. There's a lot of lessons that India has learned about essential workers, about workers in the informal sector. I see the new scheme that has come up on registering of informal workers in India. So there's a lot of learning that has happened, and India is a power player in the Gulf countries. It is a power player. You have from you have workers who are security guards and cleaners to pilots and engineers and architects and businessmen who are among the 10 richest people in the Gulf, in any of the Gulf countries. So India has that big spectrum of diaspora and migrant workers. Can India, in responding to the lessons learned from the COVID, talk about addressing this big atrocity that has happened and that continues to happen to migrant workers? This is the question that this forum needs to answer. Otherwise, it will be an advocacy that keeps only shouting, but nothing transforming in the lives of migrant workers. And we need to see that transformation. We need to see that transformation. Not only thank you to essential workers, not only clap our hands for them, not only call them our heroes, but we need to see transformation for them in a very real way. And this is one way that matters, and it matters for them. Thank you. Thank you to the organizers. Thank you to the panelists. I hope we have a good discussion that can take this forward.
Thank you so much, William. In fact, when I listen to you and also see my paper presenters as well as our discussant, but we had a Saudi Arabia minister just visited India and visited both the External Affairs Minister and also the Prime Minister. Now, someone asking me why the Saudi Arabia minister has come. I told them all ministers will come to India after some time because our Prime Minister want to make India as a skill capital. If a skill capital is there, all people will come and collect the skills and go. I think in that context, I think very important what we are going to discuss today, very important topic. Let me, before I hand over to the reports presentation as well as the discussion, I just want to give you a small background because return migrants is not a new phenomenon. I think some people always tell me return migrants is not a new phenomenon. In fact, that when we did the first Kerala migrant survey in 1998, we have found that Kerala close to 1 million return migrants. So return migrants were something like a normal phenomena because if you go to Gulf, they have to return. It's like a life cycle of the migrants. The second thing is that, today when we talk about wage theft, I remember I was doing a field work when K.S. Singh was ambassador in UAE in 2001. That's the first time we did a field work with the Indian Embassy as well as the Abu Dhabi Exchange Center when Chetty was there. When we went for some of the field work, most of them told us even that time that salary was not paid, salary was promised, salary was not paid, and the contract was replaced. So this is for me, this is like a old wine in a new bottle because I'm hearing that for last 20 years through field work in many of the countries. And if you take the return migrants who came now through the COVID-19, probably this is the highest return migrants compared to even the global crisis which we had, or the Nidakat, which affected the people came from Saudi Arabia. In fact, I'm glad Saudi Arabia minister visited first to India after the post-COVID. I think probably there was discussion about a little bit on trade development. I have no idea what happened on migration. Maybe I'll wait a little bit here from the press and other people. And so the wage not paid is not something new. But what we heard during the COVID-19 is that many people felt, I think they have been cheated. Like earlier the salary was not paid because I talked to some people who have returned from the Gulf. They said our salary is not paid. We don't know what will happen. My end benefit is not paid. I think this is something we have to discuss because, personally I feel that it is, I always call the remittances comes from Gulf as a blood money. They are working in a very heavy climate. I have seen them working in the Gulf countries. Yes, I was in Qatar for some meeting several years back. And the Qatar government told, if the climate is above 50 degree, you have to stop the work. So all the time that the climate will be showing only less than 50. But I was in the car, I asked them, they said, the car showing that it is outside is 51. But the government will always say it is not 51, it is 49.88, so that they don't need to stop the people to work. I think in that context, I think the study what we have done is very, very important. So I just want to, to say that what we are discussing today is something very, very important because I feel that people are cheated, not just cheated because they have been denied their rights, denied their hard work, denied their lifelong saving. I think this is something we have to discuss further on that. Now we have done two studies One was done by IMAD, which currently I am the chairman of the IMAD. We have done a study with Agil and it is available as a working paper from the IMAD website as well as the MFA website. And that will be presented by Agil, who is associated with the IMAD. Then we also have another study done by CMS in Kochi, and that study will be presented by Parvati Devi. And both of the study was funded partly, I would say, by the MFA. So MFA has played a major role in funding to call people, getting the study done. So that's why they have taken a lot of interest. And these two people will speak for a few minutes on their study with some presentation. And once they finish the presentation, we have two excellent discussions. I would say that we have Professor Vinod Kataria. He was formerly a professor at JNU, but currently he is the president of the Global Research Forum on Diaspora and Transnationalism. They are running many programs. You might have attended some program. And also I know him for quite some time. He's also part of the IOM's, what is called the big flagship report called, the World Migration Report. So I know him. So I think he will give us some insight based on our study plus his own understanding on migrants. He works for quite some time. Then we have Dr. Surabhi Singh. She is currently the CEO of the India Center for Migration, which is the think tank of the Ministry of External Affairs. And she has probably read the report and she might be seeing the news. And one thing is that what I heard from the government is that government, especially the State Minister for External Affairs, who is from Kerala, in some context he has told that we know that some people were being not paid salaries. I think there's a recognition coming from the minister. We had in some discussion, of course, he's from Kerala, so that he may be briefed by some people. But then let us also see what Surabhi want to say based on her own research on migration, and also from the government perspective, she can also share some insight what the government is up to, and what even discussion what they had with Saudi Arabia. If there was anything about the wage theft, I have no idea, or the salary paid, or the remigration issues, I have no idea. Probably she was hearing more from her on that visit also. With that, I am going to stop here. I am requesting Agil to make a short presentation on the study what we have done on wage theft based on field work in both Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Thank you, Agil. Please.
Thank you, sir. So let me share the slide.
Any problem?
Yeah, I'm trying to, yeah. Yes.
You can make it the full mode. You can
Sure,
make it full.
sure.
Slide so full.
Is it visible now?
It's visible, but you can make it slide so it will be much more better.
Yeah.
You want to hold on like that? We can see that anyway.
Okay.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Is it visible for everyone?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Okay. Hi, one and all. Okay. So first of all, I would like to congratulate MFA, SINS, and IMAD for not only creating awareness among academia and policymakers and even public also through the study, but also in mapping out and documenting the grave issue of wage theft among Indian returning migrant workers. So our major motivation for doing this study was the massive repatriation, and followed by the reports of wage theft experienced by Indian migrant workers, and especially the employers took that an opportunity to send back Indian migrant workers back home using the repatriation channel. So we decided to conduct a quantitative exercise in order to understand the nature and characteristics of the issue of wage theft in the Indian context. The major hindrance for us was the lack of data, because there was no official data for the contacts of the returning migrant workers. Only 2 states have provided us the contact details of returning migrants, that is Kerala and Tamil Nadu. So based on the contact details, we have actually reached out to nearly 20,000 returning migrant workers over telephone, and we managed to interview 2,252 migrant workers who returned during May 2020 and December 2020. So from both Kerala and Tamil Nadu, and it's scientific sampling is always difficult due to the lack of data. And among the returning migrant workers, nearly 50% of the workers in the sample, 50% of the workers have came back from Saudi Arabia and UAE, and it shows the dominance of the workers from the GCC countries. And most of the returnees were employed in industrial, construction, and hospitality sectors. And as obviously the percentage of female respondents were low. And when we come to the nature of job loss among the respondents, and 45.5% of the workers chose to repatriation due to the job loss.
Again, your slide is not moving. You're
Um,
not moving the slide.
oh, it's not moving.
Yeah.
Is it moving now?
No,
Oh,
No, it's not moving.
not moving.
oh, just hold on for a second, sir. I'll just reshare it again. Then. Is it moving now?
It's not there at all.
Oh. Just hold on for a second.
Yes. Yes. See, it moves or not, please check. Can you
Moving?
move it? Yeah, now it's moving. Yeah, now it's moving. Yeah, you go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, among the workers, 45.5% of the workers who lost job, and when we see the country-wise data, and 30.7% of the returnees from came back from Saudi Arabia, followed by UAE and Qatar, and most of the returnees who employed in who lost job employed in industrial sector, followed by construction, domestic work sector, and hospitality sector. And among the people who lost job, and almost 30% of the workers were asked to resign, and 18%, almost 18.7% of the workers advised to travel back home without paying their wages or salaries, and 2.6% of the workers were threatened to terminate, and only 12.7% of the workers who managed to travel back with wages and dues. And when we see the industrial workers, the workers who worked in employed in industrial sector, they had a kind of favorable or dignified repatriation. We can see that 27% of the industrial workers who employed in industrial sector were offered a termination option, and 22% of the workers managed to came back home with salary. So it is maybe related to the better protection system, wage protection system they have in the GCC countries. We can correlate this dignified return of industrial workers with the wage protection system in the GCC countries. And among the people who lost job, 39.1% of the workers who faced non-payment of wages or reduced wages during the pandemic, and among them 8.8% of the workers who had lost jobs worked during the pandemic without wages, and 18.2% of the workers witnessed a reduction in wages. And most importantly, 5% of the workers denied all benefits such as gratuity, severance pay, air tickets, and other benefits. Based on this characterization, we can actually divide the waste into 6 categories. I'm not going to explain these 6 categories in deep. It includes the absence of regular payment of wages as well. So from the survey, from the study, we have a number of findings. So I'll just focus on the key findings that is related to the waste theft or characteristics of waste theft. And one of the most important aspect or important finding from the study is the correlation between waste theft and duration of the stay. And workers who stay more in the destination country are prone to waste theft compared to workers who stay there for less than 2 years or less than 5 years. And 65.5% of the respondents who lost job had spent more than 2 years in the Gulf countries. It is maybe because of the fact that when they stay more and work more, then they may be eligible for more end of service benefits and other dues, and employees may not want to pay that such a huge amount of money, and push them out of the job and repatriated them. That could be a reason. And when we see the occupational based theft, again, people in the construction sector experienced 19.7% of the workers in the construction sector experience wage theft, followed by hospitality and domestic work sector. They are disproportionately affected compared to other sectors. And impact on remittance, we try to capture, the loss of wages and remittance, but it is very difficult in a large-scale telephonic survey to capture the exact numbers. But wage theft obviously leads to a reduction in the flow of remittance and of the country in the long run. But short term, there may be an increase due to the regular flow. I mean, the increase in fund through the regular channels, and the sale of assets, large-scale sale of assets by the returning migrants as well. And among the female migrants, domestic workers affected most, and 58.3% of the domestic workers were denied their wages, and the employers actually demanded cost of recruitment also from these workers. And another most important variable we analyzed is the access to grievance mechanisms and legal that is a major challenge.
Just 2 minutes.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. I'll try to finish in 2-3 minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
Access to grievance mechanism and legal service is one of the important variable we analyzed, and found that only 3.3% of the workers were received advice about addressing the non-payment of wages, and only 26% of the workers were aware about our mother platform, and 6% of the workers avail helpline facilities. It shows that the analysis showed that only very few percent of the workers managed to receive some kind of grievance, access some kind of grievance mechanisms and legal services. And none of them managed to file their grievance at the destination countries. It could be due to the financial constraints and reluctance of legal firms to accept the request from the workers, and the restrictions during the pandemic. These factors might have contributed to the absence of case filing at the destination countries. And I'm not going to deeply to this stakeholders response, because we all know how the national government, state governments, and the civil society in India responded to the crisis. Since I have only 2 minutes, I'll just directly go to the recommendations. So these recommendations we have captured from the in-depth personal interviews we had with 30 selected migrant workers. So apart from the recommendations such as to strengthen the coordination or bilateral coordination between countries, we have a number of other recommendations. One of the most important recommendation is that documentation of grievances at the port of arrival. India should document the grievances when the migrant workers come back from work at the destination countries, especially during the pandemic or during the time of crisis, and facilitation of power of attorney procedure for the repatriated or returning migrant workers at the Indian missions. That helps them to file the case at the destination country even at their absence, and establish a fund at the missions or at the ministerial level to provide accessible or affordable legal aid, and of course ensure minimum wage protection for the Indian workers, and maybe through bilateral agreements, and monitor wages and ensure regular payments by setting up a payment registry in the e-migrate platform. This is also one of the key suggestions came up during the presentation, during the survey. And another one was set up a panel of lawyers to ensure free and affordable legal service for Indian workers. And PDO manual should include a module on accessing legal service at the destination countries and upon return as well. And RAs should conduct periodic review of activities of their regular employers to reduce the avenues of exploitation. And most importantly, set up a platform for government and non-government stakeholders to coordinate the grievance redressal of repatriated workers and attorneys. And CSO, civil society organizations in India need to advocate for evidence-based policy making by sharing the data of wage theft periodically with the governments, maybe for better advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Akhil. You can quit your PowerPoint. Thank you so much, Akhil, for presenting the study what we did in both Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Of course, we could not extend the study to other part of the country. Probably through some contact, we will be taking it up in other states also do the similar study. We are talking to some people on that. Let me turn to Parvati Devi to speak on the work done by CMS on wage theft. Parvati, please. Parvati, you can unmute. You can unmute.
Yes, sir, it's working. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, sir. Let me just share my screen. Is it visible, sir?
No, it is not. It is coming. Yeah.
It's there now?
Yeah, it's visible, but you can make it full. It will be good. Now it is
Okay,
only.
sir.
You can put the slides all big, full.
Okay, sir.
So you know the timing. So okay.
Is it working, sir?
It's okay, but you want to make it full, that PowerPoint, because you are showing only, like.
Okay, I just made it into a PowerPoint. Is it
No,
visible there?
Yeah, the slide so full. Okay, if you cannot do that, let it continue with that. Please go
Okay,
ahead.
sir. So in case if the slides are not working, please let me know, okay?
Yeah. You move and check. Can you move and check?
Is it working now?
No. Can you move the next slide?
Yes, I just moved.
No, it's not moving.
Just a minute. Is it working now?
It's working. Yeah, moving. Yeah.
Okay, so the slideshow is not enabling sharing, that's why.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Parvati Devi. I'm a research scholar in the discipline of international relations. I am also working as a researcher along with the Center for Indian Migrant Studies. I would like to present the report titled as Justice for Wage Theft Among Indian Migrant Workers with you. I would like to acknowledge the Migrant Forum in Asia for the completion of this work. SIMS has started collecting information about wage theft among Indian migrant workers as part of the Justice for Wage Theft campaign. SIMS has been an active campaigner for the advocacy against wage theft from India from the beginning itself. I would like to get to the report, and first of all, I would like to explain the strategy which we use for data collection. Since we are a CSO which has been working for around 20 years, we have a lot of experienced stakeholders who are partners along with us. A lot of migrant rights welfare workers in the GCC countries, and of course the Pravasa Logam show has again have a sort of a welcoming reaction among the migrant workers. We have used, as you can see, these flyers. We have shared these flyers among our associates into various migrant network groups, that is WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups, through our associates, through which people started contacting into the number which is given there, which is how we came into touch with migrant workers. Again, we have also organized various events, as you can see the brochures given here, explaining the situation of wage theft happening among Indian migrant workers, which again helped us access more migrant workers. And a total of 6,048 returnees and a small, including returnees and a small percentage of migrant workers who are stranded abroad were contacted for data collection. These people have contacted us, seeing the flyers in which we have offered them legal assistance. The legal assistance was made possible with the contribution of an international lawyers group called Lawyers Beyond Borders. Now coming back to the report, among the 6,048 returnees and migrant workers stranded abroad, we contacted 741 of them. That is 12.25 migrant workers reported of being victims to wage theft. We contacted various, these are the labor contracts, termination letter, bank account statements, and such documents were collected from them as evidence, so that we could build a very strong evidence-based advocacy approach. And among the group, 90% belong to construction sector, and 2% in manufacturing, 2% in transporting, 2.5% comprising of sectors such as domestic work, retail, and medicine. One of some of the major findings of the study was that many migrant workers started experiencing wage theft through recruitment agents itself. We have found that many migrant workers who don't have the money to pay beforehand are forced to give several months wages to recruitment agents, which again which puts them in a precarious situation. It was also found that several of the returnees got wages that were much below than the minimal referral wages. And again, one of the shocking revelations of the study was that 26% migrant workers and 60% of the migrant workers from the state of Kerala reported that their wages were held by perpetrators of Indian origin. Again, majority of the workers testified that they have either been sent back to India in a hurry or abandoned in the destination country by the employers that are the perpetrators. And again, we have found that these 741 migrant workers which were contacted belong to 12 states in India, and the state of Kerala accounts for the maximum returnees we have accounted for, that is 397. Again, the other numbers go like from Bihar 100, Tamil Nadu 79, Andhra Pradesh 41, Telangana 30, and so on. You can find the detailed information in the report that has been sent for circulation. And again, we have also conducted a study on to estimate the remittance loss caused by wage theft among these number of migrant workers. And we have calculated the amount based on documents given by the 741 migrant workers. For some of the migrant workers who did not know their amount, as the company just abandoned them without any kind of explanation, we have used the service benefit calculator provided by the Saudi Arabian government for such workers, and that is how we came up with the figure that among these 741 migrant workers, 122 crores rupees, around 122 Indian crore rupees has been denied. And when we take an average, it has been found that approximately 15 lakh rupees has been lost to each migrant worker as a result of wage theft. The amount is such high because most of the migrant workers we have contacted have service experiences ranging from 5 to 30 years time. When a migrant worker of 30 years experience gets terminated without any service benefit, we have usually found that the amount goes up to somewhat 30 lakh Indian rupees. That is the basic calculation. That is for a staff worker who is in a better in a professional category. And again, as part of the survey, we have also been filing cases in the existing justice mechanism within India, that is the Mother portal. We have been collecting consent from victims and filing mother complaints on behalf of them. And we have started filing most of the cases around August of 2020. And unfortunately, none of those cases are still not resolved. Again, another surprising and disturbing revelation was that only 9% respondents among the 741 were aware of legal mechanisms after return to the origin country. Then again, justice mechanisms found within the destination country was found to be known among all respondents, that is the filing of a power of attorney before returning from the country. That mechanism was known among most people, but majority people only just like I said, only 9% knew what were the mechanisms available once they returned to India. and that is mother, which is again is not known among majority of the migrant workers. And again, those who have tried to access have said that they have difficulty in trying to file a complaint. An ordinary worker faces a lot of difficulty. Again, all the returnees have reported that they find it very extremely difficult to find new employment opportunities, which is why we have stressed this matter in every available platform for us, because these migrant workers, all 741 of them are still in contact with us, and majority of them are still unemployed. Those who are trying to remigrate, we have seen with the data in various Kerala migration reports that the tendency of to remigrate is very high, and majority migrant workers find it very difficult to remigrate at this point. Again, a good number of them who came back are 50 years and above with limited or no kind of opportunity to remigrate. This again makes.
Parvati, can you hear me? Parvati, can you hear me? You have
Yes,
2 more minutes.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Again, that I will just go to the challenges. Some of the challenges we have faced is in accessing women migrant workers. We have only been able to document less than 10 migrant women workers' experience, which we personally find it as a very drawback of the survey. And again, one major challenge faced was unavailability of documents. 53 respondents additionally confirmed of being victims, but then they were not willing to share details because they have no kind of, they said that they have no kind of faith in the existing justice mechanisms. And again, majority of the people who returned still don't file a case or go forward to report a case because they kind of sympathize with the employers under the feeling that they are also in a bad condition. I will just quickly sum up the recommendation. First one is to formulate a data bank on returning migrants, including all variables of wage theft, so that every kind of cases will be covered. With one example of this is that migrant worker who returned from Kuwait had to pay her overstay fine at the airport, which should have been paid by the employer. She did not know about it. So these kind of cases should also come under when we are trying to formulate a data bank on wage theft. Again, Indian embassies in GCCs should provide legal aid or pro bono lawyers for victims who are deserving. Many people who are not privileged enough find it very difficult to access justice mechanisms even when they are in destination country. And this difficulty becomes much bigger when they return to India, because when an Indian worker who returned to India has to pay around 40,000 rupees to file a power of attorney and file a case in Dubai. That's a case in UAE. It differs in each country. The rate depends on the translation charge and such cost involved. It's very high and very difficult for an ordinary migrant worker. And again, the state government should represent the returning migrant workers in the destination countries who are unable to file a case right now. Many of them are not able to file a power of attorney. We have tried to file the power of attorney to the Indian government, the Minister of External Affairs. We have sent them several requests, but we have not received any response so far. And again, we have just got news from Bahrain. Advocate Madhavan Kalat mentioned that the Bahrain government discarded a case in which a migrant worker was represented by the state. So this again calls for bilateral negotiations between major destination countries, so that all mechanisms will be made available for migrant workers. Again, we have also found that countries such as Saudi Arabia and Kuwait doesn't allow workers to file cases beyond a time limit of 1 year. These kind of issues should be resolved by bilateral negotiations. Otherwise, the migrant workers who are returning in large number towards India will be will will have a very difficult life ahead, and this will further affect the socio-economic balance of the country. Again, mechanisms of coordinations must be made along governments and subnational migration governance bodies, for example, like NORCA, to address grievance redressal of migrants. And again, one of the major recommendations of the study is that the Indian government should ensure that Indian perpetrators who harm migrant workers abroad and conduct wage theft on them should be made accountable in Indian law itself, because the rate of Indian perpetrators is very high. If the Indian government could do something about it, it will be a very helpful step for the people. Again, I would like to stop by showing various news articles that were covered about the study which we have made. Several articles came in Reuters and Hindu, and we are still trying to reach more people in addressing these issues, because these 741 people are still in contact with us and they need our help. Thank you.
Thank you, Parvati, for the report presentation. Now I will get back immediately to our discussions. We have Professor Bharat Kataria, please.
Okay, am I audible, Hirudaya?
Yeah.
So I must thank both Hirudaya Rajan and William Goy for inviting me to this particular launch of the two reports. And I have actually gone through the reports more than once. I know it has been done at a very short notice, and so I must congratulate both the teams of both the institutions that they have been able to bring forth the main points that is involved in this wage theft. And William Goy has actually, situated the topic, the subject, that it is controversial, it is sensitive, and this is so. So we'll also talk about that. But I should say, how is it different? How is it different from return migration? Hirudaya Rajan mentioned that return migration has been taking place for a long time, and wage theft or wage denial has been there for a long time. So how is it different from those tendencies? I think the wage denial was a slow process. It's a well-known process. But what is unique in the present circumstance under COVID is its suddenness. It is speed, the speed at which it has taken people by surprise. That, I think, is important to be taken note of. And in terms of return migration, it is actually forced return migration. It's not voluntary return migration. That has to be understood properly. And I think both the report presentations have vividly elaborated those issues, quantitative numbers involved, what are the procedures, what efforts have been made, and all those are there. So I'm not going to go into those details again. But as Hirudaya has suggested, that I look at it from the academic point of view, or how researchers should look at it and create an argument, not an activist argument, but an academic argument for governments or for the stakeholders to be convinced that whose interest is involved. Is it the interest of the migrants only, or is it national interest of both the sides that is also involved? And if we can create that kind of an argument, that I think there's a lot of material and a lot of potential in both the reports to create that kind of an argument. I would suggest that I would call it, we used to hear, long back, the flight of capital. Flight of capital takes place whenever there is a risk. Investors do not want to keep their money investment in risky places, insecurity, wherever. So this is why are people running away from that place, from the destination country, mostly the three countries that you have covered from the Gulf, and you have also mentioned USA. But it is basically flight of human capital. That we need to understand from the Gulf countries. And along with this, what is happening is the misappropriation of finance capital. It is not wage theft. From the presentation, that I understand that it has been asset, liquidation of the asset also, their accumulated wages over 2 years, even 10 years, and so on. And so that people are, the flight of human capital is associated with flight of finance capital. And that's not only wage, it is wealth. It is the accumulated wealth which is at stake. That has to be understood properly. So it is lifetime savings that is also being at being becoming the subject of the issue. So I would say, in the process, we can think about it like it is like killing the hen that lays the golden egg. The skills that you mentioned about that how important they are. I'm reminded of the GCIM, Global Commission of International Migration, which was set up in 2002 for 3 years. And that mentioned about the essential skills, essential workers. And it said it is not only the high skill or the low skill which are essential, the both are essential workers. And that has come out here. You have presented and said that both highly skilled and low skilled workers have become victims of that. It's another matter that the high skilled migrants workers have more retention power. They can sustain this, they can go to the courts, they can take resort because of their higher incomes and higher saving. The low income, low skill workers cannot do that. So that has to be understood. And by and large, it is all the workers in a holistic way. We have to understand, we have to carry them with us so that we become stronger in our voice. That I think is very, very important. So I would like to say that what happens is in the forced migration, the minimization of the risk to life. That is why it is forced self-migration. People don't want that. It's fear of the COVID infection. That is also driving people out of the destination country. And then the motivation that is driving the employers for denying the wages and the wealth that they are taking away is maximization of profit. It is maximization of profit in one form or the other. It is part of the profit-making instinct that is there. So the basic instinct of the human behavior that social scientists have been have been exploring time and effort by putting their time and effort to decipher the recommendations and how to ameliorate that over the decades, over if not centuries. So the two primary determinants of these two human instincts of risk minimization and profit maximization are time and space. That we have to understand. The time is because here it is the value of time, the opportunity cost of time. It is not only the theft of the past wages, it is also theft of the future wages because they are unemployed. They are not able to earn anymore. They have lost their jobs. So they don't know for how long they are going to be without jobs. So that's also, in a way, giving away their future income. So that has to be, also argued along with this. And we need to understand in terms of space. Space has come out very well because it is jurisdiction. It is jurisdiction over the space that we have, certain constraints. If it is another country, it's not only one country. It's a number of countries where the legal systems are diverse, completely diverse from each other. The requirement of filing a court case are differing. So you run out of time. So time and space are very important ingredients in this whole mess that has happened that we need to understand. And that is what is determining the effectiveness of the precariousness. The intensity of the precariousness is determined by this only. If I have retention power, I can sustain myself for 1 year, then of course, I will do that. But if my retention power is not enough, say I have no money to buy my food, clothing, or basic requirements for the family, then I will give in. That I think is very, very important to be taken note of. So when we look at the grievances, I think I could see that there are 6 types of grievances that have been listed. So we need to reclassify them and see which ones are the old continuum of the grievances and which are the new ones. Because if we put them all into the same basket, then we will not be able to fight them because grievances would be united. And once you point out one grievance, they will say, no, let us first address the other one. They will divert you. So you must prioritize. You must say this is the first grievance, this is the topmost grievance, and then this is the second one, this is the third one. Create that sequencing. That is very, very important. So once we do that,
Professor Vinod, another 2 minutes.
okay, I will just wind up. So
Okay.
I will say life versus livelihood. That is the main dilemma of the COVID. And this is where you have also mentioned that the employers are not sacrosanct. You know, the employers are also having going through recession, through financial crisis, and so on. So one has to be sympathetic to that also, because, and that is what I'm saying. I would rather stick my neck out and say that, you know, our court justice takes time, ages, and justice delayed is justice denied. So that's where we have to be smarter than that. We have to see whether arbitration can take place, whether tribunals can come in, whether reconciliation can happen. So it is not bilateral between two governments. Their stakeholders are also the employers or the agents. We have to actually ask them to come to the negotiating table, so that we shorten the time and give that redressal to the migrants who cannot retain themselves for long. So finally, I would say that in whose interest this should be done? Should it be the migrants' interest or the employer's interest or the agent's interest? No, I would say it is national interest. It is national interest by first lessons of economics. That is because once we have wage theft, that means the purchasing power in the pocket of the migrant has been reduced. Remittances have been reduced. All these are purchasing power, the liquidity in the market. They dampen the demand. If they dampen the demand, the supply would also go down. So you will, in a vicious cycle, cobweb cycle of low level equilibrium trap. That is what the countries involved, both origin country and destination country, would fall. And this is the lesson that every stakeholder has to work in one's own self-interest. The lesson that Adam Smith, the father of the nation, had given us 350 years ago. We have to revive that and bring it on the board and say, this is our argument. Don't go by charity. Don't go by welfare argument. Go by the efficiency argument. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vinod Katria. We will have some time for the other to ask question. I think one idea which I was very impressed was the time and space. I think something very important, because something you can do in your own space, you can't do once you're out of the space. What you can do in India, you may not be able to do in Saudi Arabia. You are in another space. I think that's very, very important. You should look at it very carefully. Now I am requesting Dr. Surabhi to share her comments, views for next maybe 7 minutes.
Thank you, sir, and good evening to everybody. Let me congratulate MFA, IMAD, and SIMS for doing this study. We did go through it very minutely, and we noticed the number of grievances that both the reports actually have quite a few overlapping suggestions, and the nature of the complaints that they were able to track for the workers. And we also noted the point about inadequate grievance redressal mechanisms that both the reports actually highlight. So let me just begin by saying that as of today, we have 982 cases as pending grievances for the 6 GCC countries that both the reports have sort of sought to cover. And talking about the grievance redressal mechanisms, I think there are two things we need to keep in mind. Whether the mechanisms themselves are inaccessible, whether all the helplines, the support numbers, the e-migrate complaint mechanism, whether they are inaccessible, or also the fact about the lack of awareness, which both the reports seem to highlight, that only 26% of the workers were actually aware about how to approach when faced with an issue like non-payment of their salaries and benefits. So I think that is an important area of intervention for us in the government sector as well to take forward. How do we build more awareness among the people so that at least the cases are brought to the notice of the government? I'll come to the fact about the pending grievances and what can we do about that. But first step is to empower our people who are going to work abroad in cases where they are going to face situations of what the report terms as wage theft. How do they go about it? So one key takeaway for us from this report was how we need to bolster our initiatives and take this more aggressively of educating people. The second point is about the grievance redressal mechanism. So I'll just explain very briefly how the grievance redressal mechanism works within the Ministry of External Affairs. Now, there are three ways of lodging a grievance. Either you do with Madad portal, or you call in the support helpline, the Pravasi Bharti Sahayata Kendra, or you lodge complaint on the e-migrate platform. Now, once a complaint comes in to PBSK, if it involves a foreign employer, it's lodged on to Madad, it's recorded, and Madad has an inbuilt escalation mechanism. So it's not as if that the complaint is launched, so it's lying there. If in within, for instance, for a certain amount of time, if it doesn't get a response from the concerned officer, it automatically escalates. So action does take place at the end of the complaint. It's not that the complaints are lying dormant. However, what needs to be given when lodging a complaint on the part of the worker, and I do understand that many of the workers who go abroad either are not very well educated or do not have the supporting documents. That's unfortunately the travesty of the situation. But however, if you choose to proceed ahead with the complaint, you need your employment contract, a copy of the visa, a passport copy. In case the worker does not have the employment contract, then a written letter is needed from the worker specifying at least the foreign employer who was employing that person. Because to take even action on the part of the embassy and to take it forward, the details of at least the employers are to be known, and around 2 lakh foreign workers are registered on the e-migrate portal. So inevitably, anybody who is employing for the GCC, if that company is still in operation, we will manage to find out that company. That is, in rare cases, it may happen that the company is not being able to be located. But given the size and scope and the current mechanisms, I think there is good chance that the employer will be located. Now, once that happens, the complaint goes to the mission. The mission will approach the employer, or in very severe cases, it is also taken up with the local authorities for redressing the cases of the workers and for getting at least some compensation uh, paid to the worker. Now, it also happened in the times of COVID, and COVID being an unprecedented situation, that many of the companies either shut shop or were not electronically available. So when the companies vanish from the electronic system, it's kind of difficult to locate. So I'm just trying to show a picture in the landscape in which the government is also operating while trying to help the people who need the services. Another point that we need to keep in mind is how the process of migration takes place. So, very few people actually go through the e-migrate route, for which full details are available with the government. A lot of people go on visit visas, which are then turned into employment visas, and then they take up work. When COVID happens, and it takes time for that visit visa to get converted into employment visa. So at the time of COVID, many people were caught in that in between situation where their visit visas were not converted to employment visas and they were caught at the destination country. So that also happened in the time of COVID. Now, when a complaint is received against a foreign employer, the mission does try to approach them. If the employer, after repeated requests for meeting, for resolution, is not located, then there is an internal blacklist on which the employer is put while the case is being taken up with the local authorities. So after that happens, they will not be able to recruit from India. And it is also taken at the local authorities in the destination countries for further redressal. Now, the government is not oblivious to the plight of the migrants as well. For instance, in the case of short term workers who go for short stays, for instance, in the case of refineries, which also shut down for periodic maintenance. And when COVID happened, many of these workers were stranded. So all the POP officers actually approached the registered recruiting agents to collate a list of people who were there stranded, and they were special chartered flights were arranged to bring them back. So that kind of action is also taking place. Cost of suits and all were also mentioned as one of the finding of the study. So, for instance, in the case of Jeddah, translation services and interpretation services are provided free of cost by the Indian embassy. The Indian embassy also, in most of these countries where there are a large number of workers, also have a lawyer panel listed with them. And now, in some countries, while the labor charges are some rather consulate do provide these services, and it is yet to be expanded to all others, but otherwise the lawyer may charge a percentage of the compensation to be provided to the workers. So that's how normally the grievance redressal mechanism works. But we also do face challenge at the government level, because so many people bypass the system, and their records are not available with the government. So when the claims come, the documentation becomes a problem to even process the grievances. So that factor needs to be taken into account whenever grievance redressal comes into question. Uh, Now, in the case of, sometimes it also happens that the RA has cheated the people about lure of better work, and for instance, they may be promised 1500 real, but all taken for a job where 1000 reals are being given to them. So if that sort of complaint comes to the government, it's normally sent to the concerned POE offices, and the POEs can raid the RA's premises, bar them, suspend their license, all, and police action can also be taken. So all of that mechanism is done after due process has been finished to address it domestically as well. uh, if I have to sort of conclude about my intervention, I would go on to say that government needs the support as well of people. So what key takeaway we have, and studies like this also help us to take new initiatives, think out of the box, and see how we can help people. So we are also doing, and we are also taking action now on wage theft, where we will see how we can address this issue further. And we'll also be presenting a brief to the ministry in terms of recommendation, taking cue from this report which has been done. So at least further action can be taken at the bilateral level on engaging on issues of wage theft. And more awareness is certainly one point that we have taken from this report, and also what we have been reading through on this issue. And it is not the case that government is oblivious to the plight of the migrants, but we certainly need support of all stakeholders in addressing the issue of non-payment of salaries and compensations. So I'll just stop there, but I'll answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Surabhi, for your intervention. I think one of the point which you made, I think you rightly said the government is aware of that, but there's a huge issue. For example, in Kerala, we used to have 2.3 million Keralites in the Gulf. Out of that, 1.5 million came back. That's what the government of Kerala says. 1.5 million collecting data and compiling them, who had problem, what. It's a huge task for Kerala itself. So when you talk about India, I think it's a huge task. And also some of the problem, I feel that it started prior to migration itself. I think you should look at it. It's not return migration. We are talking about problem of return migrant. Something start even they prior to migrate. Many of them go without proper document, proper passports, proper contracts. No, I think it's all adding up. And then exactly the COVID-19 has exposed every one of us, saying that how weak the system are, that people are being running post-plan. And I also see a lot of psychological stress among the families. We never talk about social cost of migration. I think something we should discuss further. Now it is open for comments and discussion, and anyone would like to ask any question, clarification, you can raise your hands, or you can whatever way you can do that, and you can take probably a minute to ask, and you can also tell whom you are asking the question so that we can ask the person to respond to that. We can take few more minutes, but anyone would like to have, please introduce yourself. Where are you talking from? Which organization? Then get back to whom you are want a response. This open now. Anyone in the audience? Anyone in the floor? Is nobody in the floor? William, would you like to say anything? William, based on the report and the comments by Professor Binod and Dr. Surabhi, anything you want to add? I think one point very clear that government is aware of that. They're also doing many things, because I told you that the minister himself has said in some meeting that we are aware of the issue. I think the awareness is already there. Now, how you can accommodate, how you can get the justice for them, may not be all of them, at least some people we can get it them. Even I was telling to somebody, even 10 migrants can get their benefits, 10 migrants, 20 migrants, and also especially we are talking about the flights of return migrants from Kerala and Tamil Nadu. But please remember, if what will happen to Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Bihar, it might be much worse. They are not even able to talk about. There is no studies we are talking about right now. That's why we want to expand the study even beyond Kerala and Tamil Nadu. Anything from any one of you, especially from William or Rafiq, or the presenters like Agil or Parvati? William, yes.
Yeah, just to say, I think it's there are 2-3 things. I think what Binod said is very crucial, to look at how, in terms of what is lost, in terms of capital that is lost, in terms of the remittances and the projected remittances of these workers who would have still been employed. So how far has that affected, in many ways, the development strategy of families, communities, and the state that has been so reliant on these remittances? So I think this is a big question to ask of our dependency in terms of remittances, but also to look at how crisis like this affects us. I think it is very important to see also how we are losing traction in this whole thing of labor market, how countries of origin seem to always be at the losing end kind of thing. So while I agree with Binod also that businesses have been affected, let us also remember that businesses have been given a lifeline by destination countries, or by the state. Some businesses have been too big to fail, and so they have been given, even some, actually the truth is that even some Gulf countries gave businesses support to pay their workers during this time, but very few businesses actually did that.
Yeah.
So this is to see how workers have constantly been on the losing end, and this dynamic needs to change. I like your idea of the scale we don't know yet. What the IMD study, the CDI study, this is of just workers who knew of our organizations and came back, and we got some data kind of thing. But I think this scale is a drop in the ocean. And so I like what you're saying, Rajan, that maybe we need to check with some of the other states. We are looking at the states that are well advanced in protection kind of thing, let us say Kerala. But what about some of the other states of India where workers have returned to, where the state does not have mechanisms like Norca routes and other things and things like that? How drastic is this impact in those states is something also to be calculated, to be looked at kind of thing. I really like Surabhi's, and I actually sent her a message as well, is it would be fantastic to see again, yes, how this can be taken up in collaboration with the Indian government. I think there are opportunities that are coming up next, at the end of next month is the Abu Dhabi dialogue. It is the ministerial meeting. So that's one opportunity. We might think of how India can make this an issue in the International Migration Review Forum, that in this time of the COVID, some of the lessons learned. So there are things, there are avenues and spaces. India is a member of the Colombo process. India can suggest to that there has to be a task force and looking at recommendations on how to address this issue within the Colombo process. So there are things that could be India could say, and people will listen to, other states will listen to, because whatever it is, India is a giant in labor migration kind of thing, and so its leverage is big as well.
Thank you, William. I think the one of the point you raised about taking up study in other states, which are they have no mechanism, for example. I think that will be interesting. Probably Imad will with our partners in other states, because we know partners in most of the states. Maybe we will be thinking of taking up studies on that, which will also, because we don't want to be we want to be partners in the government program. We don't want to be we don't want to do something against government. We have no interest. We just want to partner with them, so that we want to, at the end of the day, what we are talking about, welfare of the migrants. Nothing more. I think nothing more than that. Welfare of the migrants, poor migrants, low skilled migrants who cannot speak for themselves. I think that is something we can do. Definitely, it will be add value to that. And before I can give a response to by both Vinod and Surabhi, Ravik, you want to say anything? Ravik has raised the hands.
Yeah, hello. I was supposed to speak about. My role was to do vote of thanks, but I just want to intervene with some of the points raised during the discussion. This was very interesting because Government of India identified around 982 waste of issues already with their records, and Government of Kerala had also initiated a mechanism to record cases of waste theft, and at least the Norca department, not Norca roots, Norca department did a similar attempt to address the issue of waste theft before. The only thing the pending before we as civil society and other stakeholders is that the issue, these people are asking why you are terming it as a theft. Is it a right term to address the issue? You could have a little bit dilute on terming that. But we know that as a activist associated with the migrant workers issues for last since 20 years, I know that there were several non-payment issues, but there are not kind of wages we are attending. But this is different because the opportunity, as William said, is the atrocity is one side, and the other side, the employers, the corporates, and the bureaucrats used that time for acting against workers. The cases we attended showing that the mechanism is failed. Even the missions and the destination country governments and other mechanisms failed before them to address the issue. Through Lawyers Beyond Borders, the legal activist group filed a case before High Court of Kerala for getting the wages of the issues. And the court said the existing mechanism of Government of India is enough to address the issue. But as far as a ground worker, we got the impression that all the mechanism, even the mother, is failed to address the issue. Yesterday, we received a follow-up mail that I put in the chat box that the mother team is asking for the contract purpose of a worker. He was a construction worker with Jimamco company in UAE. They were asking for the contract purpose. This worker is a Malayali. He was working with the company for 22 years. So the last renewal time, there was no contract purpose because the company just did this renewal. So I asked him whether you have a contract paper because the mission is asking for that. We sent his visa papers and the passport copy. But sadly, he don't have a paper. So this is the situation. The other side, at least Kerala is having a data because Norca has done a data collection during the repatriation time. So we know that which sector, what is the cause of, what is the reason for returning his mobile number, everything, his age and his service, everything was in that data. So it was easy for us to approach the people, approach the workers. For the other states, we approached the Tamil Nadu workers and Telangana workers and Andhra workers. We don't have any data from the state government. So it's very sad to see the things going around us during the COVID. The pandemic actually badly affected for the workers who had who repatriated through Vande Bharat mission. So I request the others like Vinod and Suraj and even Rajan to do something more on this. We have to do some actions for protecting the workers because we identified 741 workers issue. The government of India identified 982 workers issue. State of government Kerala is also having issues of work research. So we have to compile all this data and document to take this issue before the government and to address the issue. At least how can we pay them during this period because they all are stuck at their home and they don't have any plan to because as Parvati said, most of the workers are above 50 years of age. They don't have a plan to remigrate. They don't have any. They are not going to do any job in their original country. So what we will do next is the question before us. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Rafiq. And we have one more person. Will be Parvati want to ask question. Maybe Parvati a minute, then I will hand over to both Vinod and Surabhi for 2 minutes. Then we'll go for the closing the program. Parvati, please.
Okay, I have a quick question to Dr. Surabhi. I would like to know if the government is right now represent, that is the Minister of External Affairs is willing to represent the migrant workers who have been sent back in a hurry or deported as a result of abandonment by the employer. These workers are coming back without any kind of documents, and as mentioned earlier, most of them have time limit. Those who are from Saudi and why they have to file a case within 1 year time. SIMS have in past issued power of attorneys to Ministry of External Affairs for cases regarding death compensation, where portability of benefits was ensured by giving power of attorney to the Minister of External Affairs. Can the migrant workers who currently returned without filing a case abroad, can they use this mechanism? What is the possibility for what are the possibilities for them if such cases apart from filing in mother? Thank you.
Thank you, Parvati. Now we will go on the reverse order. Surabhi first, then Vinod.
Thank you, sir. Regarding Parvati's question, in the case, mission doesn't represent themselves. They hire a team of lawyers on behalf of the migrant who then represent these cases. So mission is not directly involved in the litigation cases. What mission can do is to approach the local authorities for resolution. Mission itself doesn't fight the cases. And document is needed for processing cases. Inevitably, the mission will ask you for some document which gives out the detail. Zero paperwork will not even help mission's case, given the kind of laws which exist in the GCC countries. It becomes a problem for even the missions to process the claims. So some papers would be required to proceed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Surabhi. I think that's also important point. I think we have to make aware of our Indian migrants through the pre-departure training, because many of them have, as you rightly said, even forget about Saudi Arabia, even in India, your pension is not paid, for example. Yeah. Or you need a paper you worked in, say, in some place, you have because what happened, many of the migrants are, maybe overstaying, I think we should also educate. That's why I always feel that many of the problem what they face in the countries of destination and the return can be sorted out before they leave the India itself. So maybe we should play a major role in the new immigration bill. The pre-departure things should be more, more channelized. Then probably some of the problem, if you have no paper, what can we do? For example, I lost my passport once when I was in the country. They will ask you, do you have a copy of the passport? Suppose I have a number, they will try to help you. If you have nothing, I have no passport, I don't know, I am from India, then what happened? I think this documentation, something we should work out that. I think legally, like even somebody married, you want to get even some money from your spouse, you will ask you, where is the document you got married? Where is the document you have? Everything, anything minimum document is required. I think we have to educate our migrants how important the documentation of their work and other thing. I will ask Vinod to say a few words regarding what we heard right now. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Yuza. I think Rafiq also made an important point. I mean, he drew our attention to the fact that many of these migrant workers are 50 plus. So the fact of rehabilitation and re-employment in another kind of a job is that feasible? Is that feasible or not? So that question remains. And the employers abroad in Gulf countries or wherever, they would welcome this opportunity to actually retire these 50 plus people and have younger people, in their place. So that would be something which would be counterproductive to the cause of the migrants who are affected by the wage theft. That has to be kept in mind. As William said, the usual normal will not go back to. So we cannot expect ourselves to go back to that kind of normal. So we have to be innovative. That is one point. And the other point that William mentioned about the employers, I agree with him that employers would try to, maximize their profit, and in the process, they will also indulge in activities which are not ethical, not legal, and so on. But can we bring that down to zero? We cannot. We have to minimize it. We have to try to minimize it, and the way is not the code. So it has to be carrot and stick. It cannot be only stick. You wield your stick, you wait for lifetime. The way, as I said, the justice denied, delayed is justice denied. So lifetime should be over, and the generation that is being affected will be empty-handed, as has been said in the report itself. So we have to be smarter. We have to have two-pronged strategy. The slow train of the justice route can be, taken up for the issues that have been there for a long time of denying the wages and their due and honoring the contract and so on. So that has to be intensified. But what has to be new is arbitration, negotiation, bringing them to the table. Okay, we accept the fact that you are arguing and saying that we are also affected. Whether you are actually or not, that's a different matter. If you are giving that an argument, okay, you give us 70%, 80% of the wages, or 20% the government will give. That kind of negotiation has to be there that can do the troubleshooting. It is not my, a position where I stand on my ego and say, I will see you in the courts. Okay, you see me in the courts, your lifetime would be over. So we have to be realistic in that sense, that which way would actually deliver the results that we want to find right now. I don't think we have one answer. We have to have a multiplicity of recommendations, of answers. And as I said, the recommendations should, in both the reports, the recommendations are diluting themselves. If we put everything into the same basket, then, that things that we have been talking about for 20 years and things that we are talking about today, if we put them together, both will get diluted. We have to tell them which must come first. If the respondent, whether it's the government or the employer or the agent or the migrants themselves, in fact, migrants must be consulted. How much what is your retention power? If you are a highly skilled one, yes, your retention power is high. Then will you do cross-subsidization of your compatriots? Can you create a fund whereby, those who are have-nots in the low-skilled people, can we transfer some funds there? So we have to think out of the box. And those recommendations should be in those categories. It should not be like one thing, one size fits all. That, I think, is something that we can reflect upon.
Thank you, Vinod and Surabhi. I think I do partly agree with what Professor Vinod says. That, because many countries have economic package. We had 20 crore package, 20 lakh crore package in India. So all the packages goes for improving many things. But then when you talk about migrants or migrants welfare, which is very little. I think somewhere we have to draw a line.
No. Think of the recession, 2008 recession, what happened in the United States. Yeah. The government gave all those grants to these high, large corporations. And what was happening? The corporate officials were having, a lunch from that and going to islands to, have their holidays. That is what it is. This is basic human instinct. We have to minimize that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Now I think I will request Mr. Rafiq to say the vote of thanks for this discussion. Rafiq, please.
Hello.
Yes. Yes.
So this is official vote of thanks, but see, I think you understand the issue and you went through our reports, and we request you to further follow the study we have taken. And as Rajan said, we want to address the issues of the other state workers also. So at least the government should hear their voice about what happened to them during this period and what we lack in future, because this much data is with us. The government of India is having this much data of repatriated workers. So at least we can study and learn how can we further proceed our migration towards where we have to look into what are our shortage and how can we make more information on them for them. So this is just a beginning. Please consider this is just a beginning, and we need your support for more work on this to take up this issue before government of India as well as the destination country governments. Thanks for being part of this, and other listeners. Thanks for joining with us, and see you on next interaction for this kind of happenings. So thanks very much. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you, Surabhi.
Bye, William. Thank you, Surabhi.
Bye all. Thanks.
Bye. Bye.
Rajan,
Thank
Vinod.
you.